absolutely. I think, and I don't even hate to say it, I think that powerlifting is a women's sport now. Like, look at the top 10 strongest, look at the top 10 strongest people all time ever in the world. Like, I think 7 of them are women.
All right, everyone, we got a very special guest for you today. Fresh off an amazing performance at the Kern, number 7 all time in the 198s, and one of the strongest women in the world, 𝐓 Jarman. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. What an introduction. Better now.
Yeah, so just to get into it, you've been competing for about 7 years almost, I believe. And
I think so. Yeah. About.
where's your athletic background before you got into lifting, or did you just start powerlifting out of nowhere?
I did not start powerlifting out of nowhere. There was definitely an evolution. I'm sorry. I'm digging through open powerlifting to see when my actual first meet was, and it was in 2015. So yeah,
Six
about
years.
6 years. But I started, so my childhood and growing up and through high school and a little bit in college, I was a swimmer. So that's pretty much all I did. I did gymnastics 1 year in middle school with my friend because she wanted me to, but I was a swimmer. And then in college, I dabbled in water polo just because they didn't have a swim team, but mostly just took a break from doing anything all that healthy in college. And then after my daughter was born in 2009. And when she was about 2 years old, I started running. I wanted to be in shape. I didn't want to be in shape. I wanted to be real skinny. So I started running. Mm-hmm. And I also, in 2013, moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and it's very hot there. So I needed to run inside. So that's the first time that I joined a gym. I did end up coming back to Cleveland, but I still kept running in the gym, and it was in LA Fitness. I started working out at LA Fitness up here, and they had this private like women's room where you could work out away from everyone so that no one could see you, only girls allowed, like no one's ever in there. And that's where I would go to just do whatever machines were in there, because I didn't want anyone to see me, and I was very embarrassed, and I thought everyone was going to laugh at me, sort of. I think the same experience that a lot of women have in gyms. But I was walking out of the place one day and someone stopped me and they said, basically, like, we think that you look great. We think that you could be a great bodybuilder. We will help you. And they sort of took me under their wing and started training me for bodybuilding shows, for figure shows. But they themselves were powerlifters. So I got the confidence in training in front of people from them. And I also got to learn both sort of bodybuilding and how to powerlift, how to do the big 3 things from them. And that is how that all started. So probably in like 2014, 2015, I did my first powerlifting meet before I ever started training for anything.
Oh, really? Wow.
So that was like my intro to this sport. I just did a meet because I wanted to, like, they're like, we'll just get some numbers and then we have something to work from. So for the first, I think 2 years, I alternated between powerlifting and bodybuilding. I was very small, I think 160, 150 about. I'm 195 right now, if that gives you any context for that. I have to cut a couple pounds to 198 usually for meets. But I started exclusively powerlifting 2017. And here we are today.
Wow. Well, it definitely shows because you're obviously super jacked. And so
yeah, I've always had the bigger back and shoulders is the swimming stuff, and everything else, probably that bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah. And how tall are you?
I'm 5'9". So not short enough to get an advantage from it, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah, just to help you with 1 out of 3 lifts, but the other
a long way to the floor. I know.
What happens when you walk into a gym and just like outlift all the dudes in the gym? What is that like?
I honestly try not to go to gyms anymore where like that would be noticed. Everyone knows me at my gyms, and I like to keep it that way because I hate that. Like, that's a thing for me too. I don't like being the strongest person in the room. I know a lot of people like going to gyms and like to they think that's enough for them, is to be the strongest person in the gym. I think that's great, and I think they've made it. I don't like that at all because that's not helpful to me. Like, I want to be better. And now, like with open powerlifting, every meet that everyone does, you're competing with everyone in the world. So like the people at the gym don't matter. And I like being around people that can make me better. And dudes that think girls that even show up at a gym are impressive are not very helpful.
Well, at your level, is it ever hard to not compare yourself to other people? Like in terms of, oh, this is someone in my division, they're progressing faster in one lift. Like, do you ever get caught up in that, or did you when you first got started?
I definitely did. Well, it sort of changed. When I first got started, when I first started being the strongest person at the gym, which at LA Fitness does not take much, I thought I was pretty cool. And I thought that like winning local meets or winning my weight class in a local meet like was a really big accomplishment, and not to take away from it, because it is, and that's very exciting, and it's definitely a stepping stone on the way to where I am now. But now I do find myself comparing, or having to stop myself from comparing myself mostly to women in other weight classes is the issue now. Because that 165 class is ridiculous. And it's hard to look at people who in a weight class based sport weigh much less than you and are outlifting you. Well, maybe that's not common, I don't know, but that's sort of something that I struggle with. And I just have to remind myself that they're not my competition. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of which, we were talking before we kind of did the intros, but you just came off an awesome performance at, basically the Super Bowl of powerlifting, the Kern. How was that for you? And can you just take us, like, what is it like being part of these tournaments?
Thank you for saying outstanding performance. It was not a very good meet for me. But it was like my total was good enough to put me at 7th in sleeves. I haven't done a sleeved meet since 2015. My first meet was in sleeves, and I haven't done it since. So my last sleeve total was, I believe, 628 pounds. And I just totaled 1,300, like 1,306 in this one. So a big PR in sleeves, I suppose. But I was going to do it in wraps. A couple of weeks out, when I started putting the wraps back on, I started having some significant back pain that I just like was not able to squat in wraps. I couldn't get through training sessions. So I was like, all right, well, I still want to do it. So I'll do it in sleeves. But the meet itself was the first big meet that I've ever done like that. I've only ever done local meets. And I guess I shouldn't say that because I've done the Arnold twice, but I live in Ohio, so it feels like a local meet. Like I can stay at my friends' houses and I know everyone there.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I'd ever traveled. It was the first time I don't think the Arnold sort of draws the talent that it used to anymore. It hasn't for a little while. So it was the first time where I was like on a platform with kind of all of the best in the world, and the showdown's going to be the same, but more. So that was very, very cool. I am a fan of the sport. I think it's very cool to see these records falling and to like be there front row. And then I don't want to say it's surreal to be on the platform with these people, because I do know most of them at this point. So it's mostly just like watching my friends do really well, which is great. And I don't get starstruck. It's like, oh, look at these actual people doing really cool things. But definitely the atmosphere there, and like this meet, hearing people that I didn't know cheering for me, or like people coming up and introducing themselves or asking for pictures, that's very surreal. That's more surreal, because it's like, I'm like, there's way cooler people over there. Did you see them? You should go talk to them. So that was more of the thing that was different for me. Part was feeling like I belonged in this group of people that are all putting on world-class performances. It's very cool.
Yeah, and I think Darrell was mentioning you had a pretty awesome deadlift too.
I did that deadlift. That's the second time I've ever picked up that deadlift in a meet. My last one, what was it, like 562, 563. I did it at my last meet, and I got so excited that when I went to go put it down, I threw it on the floor. And you're not allowed to do that. You have to follow it down, right? So I got red lighted. I didn't get it. They did say though that one of the judges said that like he didn't red light me for that. He red lighted me for like a rounded shoulder or something, but we got it this time. So that was good. And I have this habit of underperforming on bench specifically, and usually don't get all 3 squats. And then once it comes down to deadlift, I have to pick my third attempt based on just whatever's left to get to the total that I want. And I always somehow managed to pick it up. So I mean, that's what we did this time.
Nice. And that was 560.
5'7", was that 5'6" or
562, yeah.
Okay.
And some change, whatever the kilo changes.
That's a massive deadlift. I mean, that's pretty close to the huge women's deadlift record, isn't it?
Yeah, like what is it? What's the record for your weight class?
Oh, I can tell you. I think it's 6 something, because I think it's CC's.
Oh, so it's probably like 6.
I think it's 600.
Oh, okay.
So you're very close to hitting that.
But we can find out. Yeah, it's so funny though, because people say that, yeah, it's 601 in raw, but people say when you're, 560, 570, like, oh, 600's right around the corner. But like, man, it takes a lot of time to put just 5 pounds on a deadlift when it's that heavy.
Yeah, like when you're at
So
your,
we'll see.
it takes a little bit longer, but you are close.
No.
It's not like
Yeah, it'd be very cool. It would be very cool. I'm hoping I'll squat 5 in sleeves before I pull 6, but either one would be pretty exciting.
Damn, that would be awesome. And I think you can get there for sure. I mean, I train with this guy and he puts on like 100 pounds. And when I first met you, pulled like 660.
Yeah, my first meet ever, because I've been competing like 3 years now.
Okay.
And I was a basketball player my whole life, and then 3 knee surgeries made me kind of get out of that.
That'll do it.
And then I got into powerlifting. I trained for maybe 6 weeks before my first meet, and I had no clue what I would do, but I pulled 660, squatted like 470, and bench was maybe 340. Yeah. It wasn't anything big.
When I first met him, he had a bird chest, and he wasn't, but he had like the posterior chain of a I don't know.
Well, that's what no one pays attention to. You can't see it.
Yeah. So for me, like my numbers, we were competing at that time at 100% raw, just like a smaller federation.
That was my first meet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's dope.
It was awesome. It was in like a cafeteria.
So after that, I remember I got in the habit of comparing myself, like you were talking about. And I was like, I need to be stronger because there's younger and lighter people doing what I do for reps. But I kind of figured that once I stopped comparing, shit was going to start moving. And when I did stop comparing, my number went up. Like I tested my dead last week. I hit 821 pretty clean, and then I did 832 and dropped it at lockout because I'm a failure. Yeah. But
it'll be there on meet day.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome though. Yeah, it is. It's such it's a big weight off your own shoulders when you just worry about what you're doing, and you can just like be patient with yourself and not feel like you have to catch up to anybody. Or it's so much more fun when there's not that pressure.
Definitely.
So I know the people at home would probably be really surprised to know what you do for a living. You told me that you're in digital marketing. I know.
I do. Yeah. I'm in marketing. So my degree is in communication and journalism. And then for the past, since when I graduated in 2011, I was a writer and editor for newspapers and magazines for 8 years or so. And then I've been in marketing for the past 3. So it's yeah, just a plain old normal job.
How would
I'm
you?
not a coach. I don't own a gym. I'm not a trainer. I have no interest in doing anything like that because I love it too much. And I know that if I worked with other, like, so I have a friend who works in HVAC and he fixes air conditioners all day. By the time he gets home from fixing other people's air conditioners all day, he doesn't want to fix his own air conditioner if it breaks. He doesn't want to touch it. I don't want that to happen with my lifting. Like, I really like lifting. I don't want to give that energy away to other people all day long and then not have any left for mine. So I just keep it all to myself. I just do marketing. And I like writing and I like making things and I like my job.
You like doing home renovations as well?
I also, glad that came up. I do.
Looking at what's going on in the back there. It's like,
Well, partial projects. Okay. I don't have very many tools, but I have lots of big ideas. And so I wanted to be able to see out of my front window from my kitchen. And so I thought that I could just make it's what's that called? A picture window?
yeah.
There it is. It didn't, not a whole lot of follow through there, but I did make a picture window. And now we're waiting for a contractor who are all apparently very busy because a lot of people had home improvement project ideas during lockdown. And this is what we have now, but it'll be fixed very soon. And I can see from my kitchen to my front window.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
So it's effective.
It doesn't matter how you executed it, but you can still see outside from the kitchen.
It's called a raw edge in the bid. Industry term.
One of the things that really stuck out for me was, I was just going through your Instagram page and, it shows a lot of your lifts, which is awesome. But you also have a lot of posts with your daughter, which I found is pretty awesome. Like a lot of these people that are higher level lifters, whatever, that they just show their lifts and their gym life and rarely like reflect on their family or whatever. And that kind of stood out as like, oh, she's a pretty awesome person because, how much you care for your daughter. She's
pretty great.
Yeah.
But I do. I mean, my Instagram page is covered in lifting videos, but that's just because that's really what I do the most. It's not a lifting account. I'm not like hiding anything. I don't not want to share anything in my life. My page is, I want to be able to look back on it and see cool things that we've done. I love my kid. I think she's pretty. I think she's fun. I'm going to put pictures of her up. And then my lifting videos go there too, because that's my training log. So it's a multi-purpose platform for me.
Does she like watching you compete?
She does not care. I think she really she watched the live stream of the Kern and she thought that was very cool, but mostly because she thought that I was on TV. I don't know that she actually cared about the lifting. And then she asked me what I won. She asked me about like a trophy. And I told her that there were no trophies and she was very disappointed in that. So that's what she cares about. But the lifting itself, not so much. I think I've been in gyms all of her life. It's very normal for her, but I can't have her in the actual gym with me because it's just too distracting and I can't. When she's in front of me, I am primarily concerned with her always, no matter what, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. So she would be in kids' rooms, like at LA, they have childcare. And when I'm at gyms that don't have kids' rooms, she's with someone else that can watch her, or now that she's old enough to be home, she's home. But the gym is kind of something that's always taken me away from her. So I don't think she thinks of it as like a really cool thing. It's because she's not really involved in it. But being on TV is very cool. So I just have to do more of that, I guess.
Yeah. Plus, it's kind of the thing when you're a kid, you don't really realize how cool some of the stuff your parents do are. Like to her, you're just like, okay, my mom's strong. Like she doesn't really realize, like, no, that's one of the strongest women in the country and in the world.
Yeah, she doesn't know it all.
Yeah, whatever. When's dinner?
Right, exactly. She's like, I'm hungry though. That's always it. She thought that the Arnold belt was very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
But that was sort of the last time she thought it was cool.
You ever see her maybe getting into something similar, like sport, or even you mentioned you played some sports when you were younger?
Yeah, I was a swimmer. She is not super interested in weightlifting. She does taekwondo, which she loves. she wants to do gymnastics, but she's too awkward for it. But she can do it. She's just gonna hurt herself. But she really likes like performing arts and acting and art and stuff like that. So we will see. She's very tall and she's very thin. So maybe she'd be good at whatever she wants. But no, she's not very much into the gym and lifting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How do you find time to balance it all? Like, how long did it take for you to make it all work? Like people don't realize that being at your level takes a certain level of dedication more than just, oh, I'm going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Like, no, you need to dedicate time outside the gym too. So how do you find that balance?
Oh, I'm still looking for it. I honestly, I train 4 times a week. And since she's here, I try to keep it to 2 hours, but also the gym for me it's training and it's work, but that's also my social time. That's when I see my friends. That's when I am, not taking care of someone else. That's like my time. So it's definitely hitting 4 or 5 birds with one stone going there. I'm not a drinker. I don't go out to eat. I don't like do much else. So there's not much that I have to balance it with, honestly. Thankfully, I am able to get so much out of just those few hours a week that I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I don't feel like I am stuck or unable to do the things I want, because that's what I want to do. That's what I enjoy. So, I don't think I'm also very hyper scheduled. I like a good routine. I wake up very early in the morning. I wake up at 4:50 every morning. Wow. And drink 2 cups of coffee and do like just very scheduled and regimented. So I never really feel like I'm scrambling to get things done just because I have my days planned out. I like doing the same thing every day. I like eating the same thing every day. I'm very comfortable in structure and routine. So I've definitely found one that works. It's just not super diverse, but I'm also happy with that. So
nice.
There's not too much of a struggle.
One of the things I struggled with when I was lifting, I'm a super heavyweight. I got up to about 370 almost in body weight. And I did that all just so I could lift some more weights. And and I'm sure, right now you said you're around 2 bills. And
yeah.
For a female, that's, the average female would go, oh my God, you're 200 pounds. But then you look at you and you're like, you're probably like,
yeah.
your body fat's super low, right? And then, my only option was to just keep on getting bigger. And I decided not to do that. But have you ever thought about, packing on more weight to lift more weight? Or are you satisfied at your weight class right now? Obviously it'd be hard for you to go down, right? So,
well, I was, this meet was my second meet at 198. I've been 181 for all of the years. And then, but each prep, I did get a little bit heavier and it got a little bit harder to cut down. So finally, it just like, I didn't feel like I don't want to do it again. So I was sitting in preps at 200, 205, and I was like, all right, we'll just do 198. So I definitely been steadily putting on weight. I think that's one of the things that it was very hard for me to move up weight classes. And I think because of the conception that a 200 pound woman is gross. That's not something that, like, when you say a female 200 pounds, most people don't picture a 200 pound powerlifting woman. They picture something else. And so that was something that was hard to let go of and to not worry about. Like, it's just a number and it doesn't matter. But I have been steadily putting on weight, and this is my first prep actually where I struggled to keep it on. Typically I max out around 203 in prep and then start reeling it in. But I don't think I hit 200 this time. So I do like to train a little bit heavier so that I can lift heavier. Like, ideally I would training weight to compete at 198. My training weight be closer to 210. but I don't know if you've ever force fed yourself. It's miserable. And I can't, like, when you say, oh, when you complain about having to eat too much, people don't feel bad for you. But my God, is it hard and miserable and makes you feel like shit. So we'll see how it goes. It's a struggle. I don't want to feel gross. And not even weight gross. I mean, just like being full all the time and having to keep eating and being nauseous and not being like chewing one bite for 2 full minutes because you like can't bring yourself to swallow it. Like that's not worth it for me to put weight on, but I'll do the best I can. Yeah, I don't mind being heavier now. I do think that it's beneficial, I think, to train a little bit heavier or as heavy as you can body weight wise and still feel good, to then cut a little to make weight.
Yeah, and me and Russ have talked about it before about weight classes and how we find they're a bit too restrictive, especially as on the women's side. Like, let's look at someone like yourself. You're in the 198s, but if someone were to look at you along all your competitors, you're always taller than everybody. You're even though you're very muscular, you're not gigantic in any way. Like you're not 5'3" and 200 pounds. It's
Right.
but then if you go up a weight class, there's just no limit on it. So you can't be competitive at 205 pounds. You have to be 340 or
right.
320 to be. And it's the same with guys with super heavyweights. You're either a really good 308 or you better be 400 pounds. There's no middle ground. And we just kind of wanted to see what was your opinion on that.
Yeah.
There definitely need to be more heavier weight classes now for women. I think that there weren't before because they were really not needed. I don't know, but my impression is that powerlifting used to be like super heavyweight girls were super heavy. They were big girls, and there was no need for a 220 female weight class because there weren't enough people in the sport. How many weight classes of one person do you need in a meet? That kind of thing. But now that the popularity of the sport has just taken off, and there are so many more women, and there's a lot more bigger women too of all sizes in the higher range, like 200 plus. I think that it definitely sort of necessitates a redistribution, just adding the weight classes. I do know there was some push for it. Not last year, probably maybe the year before COVID hit and everything stopped, to get 220 added. And I know that all it takes to add a weight class is for a like governing body, whatever, like XPC actually does have 220. Like USP, all they have to do is say, okay, we're going to have this now. They just have to report the class to Open Powerlifting. They just have to put it on their record books. So it's not hard, but they're like, oh, well, we need to wait and see if we really need it. It's basically, are we going to make money off of adding another class? But I do think, because I'm not gonna, I hate to say I couldn't be competitive. I could be competitive and super heavy, but it's just such a wide range of body weights, and that's a disadvantage for anyone that's at the lower end of a class. So I'm never going to fill out a weight class where the upper end, the heavier women are, 300 pounds.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the bigger competitions where you win by total. It's like you're going in, you may be the best one there, like Wilks wise, like a John Hack, who you pretty much always show up to know you're second. But when it comes to total, it's like if you're going in and you're at the bottom, you're way higher Wilks, but this person crushes your total. You're like, well, I lost today because no one's heavier than me.
Right. It's so with, at least in the meets I've done, the best lifter awards, like the actual winners are always coefficient based, which is really nice. So in the bigger one, but the weight class winners are by total, I believe. I don't know how the Kern did it, but in every meet that I've done before that, the weight class winners were by total and the best lifter was by coefficient. But it also, at least for women, I know that it is very hard for a woman, especially one that's newer to the sport, to identify as a super heavyweight. That's embarrassing. No one wants to say that. And I know that at least for some people, a barrier of entry to the sport because they don't want to be that. It's hard to say, you know, having been in the sport for long enough, I don't care because I know like it just doesn't matter. But that's hard for people. So if they narrowed it down a little more, I think that it would get more women into the sport as well. They wouldn't be so intimidated. They wouldn't be so embarrassed. I think it could only be a good thing. And then, yeah, just having some fairness, especially on those record boards and in competitions where it's by total, by pounds or kilos, just a little more fair.
Definitely. I think, powerlifting currently, it's kind of a male dominated sport. But I think I on my Instagram page anyways, I got way more female lifters and I'm watching dudes. Like I'm just sick of watching dudes squatting and benching and deadlifting. I'm like,
yeah,
that shit. But I think to get this sport to be super big, I believe women are a huge key to that. And so, do you think, what do you think about that certain topic? Do you think it's women are making a big shot at making it a bigger sport right now?
yes, absolutely. I think, and I don't even hate to say, I think that powerlifting is a women's sport now. Like, look at the top 10 strongest people all time ever in the world. Like, I think 7 of them are women, right? Like they're obviously not as physically strong as men. Their numbers aren't as big, but like the rate at which they're getting better even, and in those coefficients is just so much faster and they're making so much more progress. Yeah, because we're newer, but like that's what people want to see. They don't want to see some big guy come in and squat, 2 pounds heavier each time over the course of 10 years. Like they want to see, like Hunter, 2 years ago was pulling 480 conventional and she just nearly pulled 600 sumo in her training for this meet. Like that improvement is exciting. And I think that is what people get excited to watch. And there's also like the self-empowerment aspect of strength sports for women. I think that they're so good for women and confidence. I think a lot of people are looking for that. It's something kind of new. Will it explode, taper off, and burn out? I have no idea, but I think it's really good right now. And I hope that it does continue to grow. And I think that women are going to be a huge part of that. And I think that they already are. I think that women are growing the sport right now. I don't think it's men.
So I know you touched on one before, but what do you think are some more changes that could be maybe be implemented to make it more appealing to women? Because I know, like you said, one, you don't want to be called a super heavyweight. And that's like the easiest change ever. All you got to do is not list the weight and call it something different.
Right.
But like that's small. But what are some other, like from when you see a meet where you're like, that doesn't really seem that fun from a woman's perspective?
I think that more attention should be paid to the tested federations, the tested lifting. I think that the things that people are doing right now, female lifters, are just so seemingly unattainable that I think that someone who wants to get into the sport will see that and be like, I could never do that. And they see like the body types are very large and very muscular and very lean, and they look like super athletes. And I think that just is, it's unattainable looking. And so it's really fun to watch and it's very cool and everyone looks amazing and great and they're strong. But as someone who's like mildly interested in maybe getting involved, it just isn't very relatable. But in places like USAPL and tested divisions, the strongest people tested are just as strong as the strongest people untested, which is insane, right? But they also are, they just look like normal people, which is almost like even crazier. But I think just having more relatable faces to the sport would help a lot, because it's just, I can't think of another sport where the people look so superhuman, really. Yeah. Like I don't know. I mean, yeah, so it could be very intimidating for someone who wants to get into it, but it's like, I mean, people still throw the, well, I want to work out, but I don't want to get bulky. I want to be strong, but I don't want to look like a man. It's a misconception, but it's still what people think. And so putting focus on other aspects of the sport, other parts, like more accessible entryways would be helpful.
Yeah, it's funny how we're still dealing with the same old misconceptions like,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to lift, you're going to get big. Or I'm sure you've probably had girlfriends that say, I want to lift, but I don't want to look like you, like get as big. It's like,
Yeah.
I could give you my program and there's no way in hell,
I promise you won't.
yeah, there's no way you would get like me. Like a girl I coach, she tried getting one of her friends into it and she says, I do want to lift, but I don't want to look big like you. It's like, do you realize how hard it would be for you to just walk around at that
Right.
size? Like if it was so easy to get big, these bodybuilders would do it for a year and then quit. Like, oh, done. Got all
Made
the
it.
muscles.
Right.
Got my pecs. I spent 30 minutes on the pec fly. It's like,
Yep.
no, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so on that, the education part is a big part too. Just teaching people about what's probably going to happen when you start working out. And it's not that you're going to shoot up and be the best lifter in the world with this jacked body that like you're still just going to be a plain old person. Probably it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and really wanting to look like that and wanting to lift like that to get to look and lift like that. If you don't want that, you're not going to get it. And even if you want it, still probably not. But just like try it out. If you enjoy it, then keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing you mentioned a bit there was just like the tested federation, some of the tested federation people are, lifting similar weights to the untested.
Yeah.
And for Darrell and I, we're tested guys, and that's a little hard for us to comprehend. I don't know. Do you think there's a little bit of fuckery afoot there?
I I won't say, what do they say? Tested doesn't mean drug-free or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about that. I've actually never competed in USAPL, but I do remember when I first started lifting that I thought I needed to get strong enough to compete in USAPL. That was like the apex place to compete. And then I never ended up doing it. I just went straight to USPA and XPC, but that's just because of people that I got involved with. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to believe. It's very hard to believe, but I also really want to believe it that they are drug free because I think that that's just so cool. And they, and I think, and I've talked about this a little before with like friends that just when you're coaching, their coaches just have to be incredible, right? Because when you're coaching a tested or drug free lifter, you have to be so much more careful. Like there's nothing to fall back on. You just have to stay healthy and stay strong. And they do seem to really stay stronger all year.
Yeah.
Compared to like other people, they just keep getting better. I don't know how they do it. I wish it was me.
Yeah.
I think the difference is a lot closer, like you said, in women's than with the guys.
Yeah, probably.
It was a previous podcast we had before, and where they were talking about people that use and don't, and they were saying that women can see a lot of results being a tested lifter, and no one really realizes it because lifting's still so new that we don't really know.
Yeah.
But I feel like with guys, there's such a big gap between the two. Like you can kind of tell because you look at guys that are at the, let's say, once you get around 230 plus for a tested guy, they start looking a little sloppy in the body. Like, let's be real, they're soft in the body.
You can only get so big, right?
But you got people who are competing at almost 300 pounds and they're shredded, and you're like, what the fuck? This is not. How do I get
that? Is true. The tested guys that are like the superstar ones, they're all lighter weight, right? So they're winning by Wilkes.
So I know you got into powerlifting a little bit later. Well,
Mhm.
later, I guess it's relative.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can
it's nearly
do it
30.
whenever you want. But what advice do you have for anyone that thinks like they're too old to start? Because that's what I thought when I got in at
Did
28.
you? Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, you're just not. Like there's if you don't want to compete with kids, there's what are they called?
Masters.
I don't want to say old people division, masters
Yeah,
divisions.
same,
But
same.
like you can always have a level playing field when it comes to like competing in a meet. And if you're older, it's just paying more attention to like listening to your body and not getting hurt. And will it take a little extra time? Maybe, but so like, are you in a rush? Just do it. If I just don't understand why anyone would ever want to do something, but then feel like they can't, like for any reason, really, just try. And there's so much, the community is so open and well, warm and welcoming and helpful that no one out there, I mean, it's the same as like when a woman walks into a gym and is afraid that everyone's looking at her. No one's looking at you. Like no one cares that you're a girl in a gym and you don't know what you're doing. No one even notices you. No one cares that you're 50 and starting to power lift. The only thing people are going to look at and see when they see that is like, wow, that's really cool. So I just don't like, it's just one of those things you kind of have to get over and just do it. It's a hobby. It's not, it doesn't, what else, what other thing? Is it because it's an active thing, a physical thing? And they think old people can't be physically active? Like, of course they can. You should be, right?
I just
There's no downside.
I just think people need to, in general, look at your own case as its own individual one, because you can't compare yourself to everyone else. Even if you have the same body type, you're the same age, etc., as someone else, you still have completely different circumstances.
Mhm.
Like in my case, I started when I was 28, so 31 now, and I look at it at how much my numbers have grown. Yes, there's lighter and younger guys than me that outlift me, but I also look at the fact that, man, a lot of those guys have been training for 10 years in one
Yeah,
sport. It's like I played basketball. I've been doing this for
right.
3 years, and if I can do that in 3 years, if you give me 10, I'm pretty sure my numbers are going to beat them. And just like look
Mhm.
at things relatively, because I think people, like we talked about before, are always comparing themselves, but they don't realize the circumstances the other person's dealing with. Like I watched an interview with Chad Penson with Andy after the Kern, and he said he'd been doing it for 10 years. And that's mind blowing to me because he's
People
20.
don't realize these guys, like, they're like, oh, he came out of nowhere. Like, no, he just got
No,
really strong in the past 2 years. He's been here forever. Like, no one comes out of nowhere, really. They've all put in a lot of work in the past. But yeah, I mean, and even with age, like, look at what's her name? Ellen Stein.
yeah.
She's like, I don't know how old she is, but she is not a young lady. And she just keeps getting better every meet. And she just keeps doing she's incredible, and she's a master's lifter. But like it really just doesn't matter. I think it's hard to get into. People are intimidated by getting into it, but once you get into it and you start making even a little bit of progress and you have enough time that you can compare yourself to yourself when you started and see how much better you've gotten, that feels so good, and that's so exciting, and it's so motivating to keep you going. You just have to get started so that you can do that.
I think that was the 58-year-old. Is that
Yeah, is she? Yeah.
uh, she was at Kern, right?
She was not, no.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. I know she did the Arnold 2 years ago. She's honestly like in her, God, I don't want to overage her, 60s or so.
Oh, well,
Yeah, there was a lady at the Kern, and when she came out, they're like 58 years old. It's like, what? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there was two that were 49 and 48. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but I'm like,
Right.
and the one started training in her mid 40s to powerlift, and then she qualifies for the Kern at 49. Like,
no.
people, that's ridiculous.
What about Nick Best there?
Oh, that was
Oh, yeah. He came back too. Ellen Stein is 67.
oof.
Well, I started when I
Yeah,
was
and she's got
36.
a 533 dots.
I'm 41. I started when I was 36. I don't know what you guys are talking about starting late. I'm old bald.
There's no such thing as starting late. It's just starting.
Well,
And then Joe, the ref, and did you ever meet or hear about when you did 100% raw about like the 80-year-old power lifter?
Oh gosh, no. What about?
90 now.
Yeah,
isn't it?
now he's 90, 91. Old Joe Stockinger.
Is
He's
he the one that did he just deadlift like 400 something?
yeah,
he's
he
that
does
old.
it at every, he'll just show up to a meet and he's got on typical grandpa clothes, like he's
Yeah,
got a
wearing like
sweater and
jeans.
slack.
He'll
He
definitely come and give you a warm welcome, that's for sure.
he's
Is he a friendly old man?
yeah.
Okay.
Rumors out.
Yeah, but yeah, he just comes, he'll show up randomly and be like, I think I want to lift today. And he'll just go out, squat like two something. He'll go out and bench close to two, and then he
Yeah,
gets out there and deadlifts 400.
And then
that's
he's
that's
shaking hands and
crazy.
giving hugs.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's
Half
different
the
when it
hugs.
comes to the hugs and everything. He's a
Liberal with the hugs.
little
All right, in this next section, we're going to ask you a few questions from some female lifters. I mean, obviously they have questions that guys don't really think about. Number
And you
one,
have to ask them through your mouth.
well,
It'll be
yeah.
fun.
Well, I get to go through this every month with my wife, which is great. I see the emotional roller coaster that is reality for most women. But how do you plan your training around your monthly cycle? And obviously the for my wife, it's like a devastating thing for her, a couple of days where she's like, I can't do anything. So yeah, what is that like for you as a lifter, and how does that affect your training?
Okay, so fortunately for me, and unfortunately for the answer to this question, I don't have to deal with it. I take birth control backed up so that I just don't have a monthly cycle. When I didn't do that, I honestly never really noticed a difference in strength, though I know some people do. Um, I really have no experience in it. I know that like sometimes I can cramp a little bit easier, or like core work can make me cramp a little bit, but otherwise there's just, I don't have to deal with it too much. I never even knew that that was an issue that people had until someone mentioned it offhand. And I was like, oh, I guess that this is something that a lot of people deal with. And then that started making me a little bit paranoid. And I was like, I'm going to pay attention and maybe I'm going to get weaker this week. Let's see. And so I thought maybe, but really it doesn't affect me. And now I do take birth control pills. So I just skip that off week and
Nice.
never really worry about it. Now, when you do that, they say that you should take some time off every couple of months so that you do have a cycle. And when I do that, I do notice it's not maybe it's a discomfort, sort of like just crampy and yucky, but really no strength differences. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be very helpful there.
All right, I have to get my wife some birth control.
Yeah, just
Level
back it
out
up
of it.
nonstop, which is apparently controversial. And birth control in general in strength training and for women is a controversial thing right now. I just am very much think that the reward for me is higher than the risk, so I choose to stay on it. Not everyone does choose that, but that's works best for me right now.
So I'll go back to the next question in a bit, but can you kind of explain that? Why is it controversial? Because we
Birth
don't
control?
understand. Yeah.
I honestly don't know too much. I think because it's putting artificial hormones into your body, and there are different things people think about what that does in the long run to women, probably specifically regarding fertility and mood, and just that you shouldn't stop your body from going through what it should go through naturally. But I don't care.
So the question I had from one of my lifters was, how do you overcome the pressure kind of put on women to focus more so your family and life instead of sports and training?
Again, that's not something that I really have to deal with, just because I surround myself with people that are very supportive. All of my friends are in the gym. Everyone gets it. And I also, I curate the people that I keep around me very carefully. And so if I feel any sort of pressure or negativity from anyone, I don't allow that really near me. And I think that is sort of just what people have to do when they're feeling pressure, or when they're getting negative attention, or someone's making them feel bad for doing something that makes them feel good. You just sort of have to cut it out. You have to put yourself first in a situation like that, because anyone that is making you feel guilty for doing something that makes you feel good, like I, in the beginning, had a lot of guilt for leaving Kate's my daughter, for 2 hours, however many times a week, to go work out. But I knew that training made me happy. I used it for mental health. And I knew that if I didn't do it, I would be upset, anxious, and depressed. That's why I started running, is because I was having anxiety attacks. I was depressed. I was medicated, and running and exercising helped me not have to take those medications anymore. So I know that a happy parent is always better than an unhappy one that has a couple extra hours a week to sit around and be miserable in front of their children. So I think you just have to focus on what you know is best for yourself. And that's what I do.
Yeah, one of my clients, she lives out in Niagara Falls there, and she does strong women stuff. I just kind of mentor her in her business and stuff like that. But one thing I noticed with her, she's incorporated her kids into her training, and her young daughter, I believe, is 12, 13. She's doing strong women stuff. And
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
I love seeing kids at meets, like, competing. I think it's amazing.
Seeing like, okay, well, this is the way I want to live my life. And then this, luckily she has her own like kind of farm and a whole barn with strongman stuff. So it's not like you can bring your daughter there too, right? But
right.
you can't, right? So yeah, that's awesome. I having seen that some of my female clients bring their kids into it, and then as a martial arts coach as well, I kind of see that as well, where the whole family comes in and trains, and it brings them together.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And like, Kate's not into the lifting, but I do think that it's still a really good example to set for kids about, pushing yourself and dedication and commitment and schedule and stuff like that. I think that it demonstrates a lot of good qualities and good characteristics, aside from just like, oh, I can lift weight. So
I used to come home at 4 p.m. and it was the Young and Restless is on the shows. My mom had the shows on, and there's no
this is what we do.
I'm like, I'd be better if went out, go out for 2 hours and go power lift and feel like a beast, and come back
and just like feel good. I think that that's contagious. So
yeah,
that's what makes me feel better about it.
Another question. I mean, Darrell wrote this down, and
I'll ask it.
Well, I can ask this shit, but it's quite most guys probably don't know about this, but girls often say, I just pissed myself, usually on a squat or a deadlift. And often there's costume changes and stuff like that. So it is reality, pelvic floor kind of is a little bit, control is weaker in women, and especially women that have had children, I believe, right? So
I think so. Well, they say that, but it seems to be pretty across the board. Doesn't I mean, some people that have had babies pee themselves when they sneeze, but powerlifting wise, it seems to be like it's a lot more common across both people with and without children.
Yeah.
But so, I don't know if it affects you, but do you have any tips, like, for any females out there that might want to try and help improve their pelvic floor control or anything?
It does not really affect me. I think I've maybe done it 2 to 3 times in my life. But from what I hear, unless you go have surgical repair, then there's no fixing it. And the adjustment that you need to make is accepting that it's going to happen, and not to be embarrassed by it. Because even if someone is new to the sport and they're embarrassed by it, odds are, if they're in a powerlifting gym, everyone else there knows about it, doesn't care, hardly even notices, and it just is what it is. Just clean up after yourself. It's so funny to see, like, lifters don't care. They don't bring it up. They don't mention it. It's a non-issue. But then you see in like live streams of big meets, like the Kern and last year's showdown was a big one. The people that are clearly not lifters watching, it's all they fucking talk about. It's like, it's just such a non-issue in the lifting community that it's one of those things that the work to do to fix it is really just accepting it because everyone else does, and it's not a big deal. I mean, you can do as many Kegels as you want. Never heard that that's helped anybody. I think the things that people say help is wearing, a lot of people wear like incontinence underwear, like the padded underwear, so that it doesn't fall out like all over the platform as much. But even then, what's more embarrassing, wearing a diaper under a singlet or peeing the platform when everyone knows it's going to happen anyway? So it's really just kind of getting used to it. And eventually you do, everyone does. It's, just let it happen once and it won't matter ever again.
A strong woman, pretty high level strong woman at our gym, Bailey, the other day, I was talking to her. She's like, "Oh, I just throw in a maxi pad. This is our reality."
Yeah.
Maybe I should get one of those too.
Living spots.
Well, it's funny because, like you said, it's people who aren't really lifters that are grossed out or like focused on it. But I remember a girl I was coaching, we were still lifting out of a just rec gym at the time and had a powerlifting team going out of there. And she beat on a heavy deadlift and she got super embarrassed. She knew she did it, but she was embarrassed. But the platform was black. I was like, here, just stay here. I just went, I literally got my water bottle and sprayed the entire platform. I was like, there, no one can fucking tell. And she's like, I'm so sorry. Cause I was near her helping her with form. And she was like, oh my God, like your socks. I'm like, I don't give a shit. It's my feet. It's a pretty normal thing. Socks? I always deadlifted in socks. But yeah, it's like a really normal thing, but I don't understand why people care so much. Like obviously Hunter's kind of known for it.
And yeah, because she's definitely the most like visible lifter that does that consistently. But she's done a really good job too of like breaking the stigma of it, like just owning it way more instead of being like, oh, I know it's gross, I wish I didn't do it. She's like, fuck yeah, I do. I also pull what I pull. Like, what would you rather do?
Like most girls, if you gave them the chance, is like pee yourself and squat 650 or don't and squat 320. They're
and even then, like, I hate to say, would you rather pee or squat 650? Like, it doesn't matter how heavy the weight is. If you can only deadlift 135 pounds and you're peeing, that's fine. That probably means that you're bracing properly. So it's just, whose opinion is it that you really care about when you're powerlifting? Other powerlifters, because they don't care, or people that don't understand the sport and don't understand anatomy and don't understand what's happening and why, because they like, just don't worry about it.
Awesome. So
it's hard to get over, but you will.
One of the last questions is just like, I mean, you seem pretty brave telling us that you just did your first meet without even preparing for it, which was, very rare.
My first meet ever. Yeah.
That kind of tells us, you got a set of balls on you just doing that. But there might be some women that are a little intimidated at first to, get into competing. And what kind of words would you have for them just to get over that mental barrier?
I understand how meets can be intimidating. It's helpful. Like I had a lot of help going in. I had people with me. I had a lot of guidance, but also I think the earlier you can do a meet, as long as you can get through and know how to like have good enough form to execute the lifts properly, get in there as early as possible, because the lower your first meet numbers are, the more impressive the rest of your meet numbers are when you can see exactly where you started and how far you've come. Like my first meet I just set was like 628. If I had waited until I had 1,000-pound total to start competing, that's not as cool of a progression as it is to where I've come now. And it's just really cool to look back and be able to see on paper exactly, like on open powerlifting, exactly how far I've come. And I'm a lot more proud of myself, and it's a lot cooler to see, to look back and to have that.
Awesome. Well, Darrell, I think those are all the questions, except for how does anybody listening get a hold of you? What is, the best way to do
I have
that?
to say my Instagram handle out loud. I'm on Instagram. It is at Emma_the Stallion. The has 2 E's,
Nice.
just like Megan the Stallion. And that's actually the only social media platform I'm on. So that's it. Emma_the Stallion on Instagram.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming on and telling us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Anytime.
Definitely great to have a female perspective on lifting, especially at your level. And we hope you all the success in your career as a lifter and in life in general.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Resolute. Prepare yourself for battle. 2 guys, 1 bench. Shit talking. Strength sports. Combat sports. Game over. Prepare yourself for battle.